Hello all and welcome to our daily news show, The Big Story, where we talk about the hottest topics of today right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Kimberly Jiao, coming to you live from the Straits Times, and we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube, so do leave us a like, comment or share it with your friends, as well as hit the bell to be told whenever we go live. I'll be joined by my colleagues from the newsroom later on to discuss the stories that got you talking today. Our first story, the online citizen website has employed foreigners, including Malaysians, to write what Home Affairs and Law Minister K. Shamgam described on Wednesday as almost exclusively negative articles on social and political matters in Singapore. With us to talk about this is news editor Zakir Hussain. Hello.
Hi.
So what are the main concerns here?
I think if I could take a step back a bit more, there's been a concern globally in recent years that foreigners and foreign countries have always sought to intervene in domestic matters elsewhere to try and influence the course of events. And you saw that in the 2016 US presidential election, right, where Donald Trump was elected on the back of really a number of outright lies and falsehoods, false websites, false social media accounts that basically put down the other candidates. In the Brexit referendum that same year, you saw lots of falsehoods being spread that immigrants, that if Britain were to stay in the EU, you'd see floods of immigrants coming in. Again, falsehoods, but spread. And I think they did affect how people voted. And there's a very real concern, with the elections coming in Singapore and so on, with tensions between the US and China, and even other neighbors seeking to sort of influence, how Singaporeans vote on certain issues. I think there's a real fear that foreigners can sort of, try and influence outcomes. And sometimes if in an election, if it's close to call, they could sway certain things.
Right. Speaking of the election, what is your personal take on this, considering that we might be nearing a general election soon?
I think this is why we might not see the election before this law sort of is tabled and passed in Parliament, right? And I think the minister did say that they are looking at sort of having a law to better govern how foreign entities, to better govern how domestic websites and social media accounts, are funded.
Right.
And currently, you don't have powers to step in or to intervene as effectively if, say, you have evidence that foreign funds or foreign agents are sort of
involved.
Are involved or seeking to direct certain events. I think in the case of the TOCs, I think it emerged in recent weeks that some of the articles on the site, right, including an article that's the subject of a lawsuit from the PM, was written by someone with a pseudonym. And that person, it emerged, was actually based in KL. It was a Malaysian author, freelancer. And at the same time, you sort of start to wonder, because a lot of the TOC pieces on some of these issues are quite inflammatory, and they seek to sort of drum up hatred against foreigners, tap on divisions over race or class or other issues. So it seems, on the surface, it's a little odd that you hire a foreigner to write inflammatory.
It's a little coincidental.
Yeah. And there are still unanswered questions, and I think the minister posed some of them. Who's behind it? What are the purpose? And I'm not sure TOC's answered them convincingly yet.
Right. Actually, speaking of, you mentioned funding. Actually, TOC's website's chief editor, Terry Shi, said in response that, there is no law against hiring foreigners, and, the website doesn't have foreign funding.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that? What do you think of that?
I think it's a welcome clarification, but I think there's still some questions that weren't answered, and I think my colleagues did put them to Terry. Why was there a need to get someone abroad to write these pieces? And why were they written under a pseudonym? Right? I think it was written by someone named Rubashini at Merge, and she used the pseudonym Chiara Xavier.
Right.
There were other instances in other sites. And I think the question is not so much that, it's not just about TOC. I think there are a number of other sites that have popped up. There are social media accounts as well, regular bloggers. The concern is if, there's precisely because there's no law against governing not so much who writes these pieces, because most mainstream media outlets, as the minister pointed out, also do have staff of both local and foreign.
Right.
It's the fact that someone with an agenda or someone who's backed by funding elsewhere, could even be someone offering to write for free, but they could be paid by someone else.
Right.
So these are questions that I think haven't been answered, and I think the law will probably try to sort of spell some of these out, and I think give the government's powers to step in and intervene and probably block some of these sites, if it comes to that, or put certain corrections up.
I see. Well, I think at this point we can't say. There are a lot of, as you said, a lot of unanswered questions, and the law is not yet in place.
Yeah, and I think then you'll get more details in the coming weeks and months, possibly here.
Okay, so if you'd like to stay up to date with those updates that we're referring to, do stay tuned to our website, straitstimes.com. Thanks for sharing more with us, Zakir.
Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah.